sorry, but I must interrupt this show. Later, you know what it is. Hey, ham solo. It's time, baby. Low. It's turn how we do. Hey. They said we said we hit. They said we said we on. They said we said we strong. They said we said we go. We say that you heard right. 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 They said we said we hit. They said we said we on. They said we said we strong. They said we said we go. We say that you heard right. 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 Man, I swear that it's imminent. I've been going so hard on my penmanship. About to go in and buy me a wheel. And I pull that shit fresh off the dealership. I can leave you in red like an Xbox. Got me laughing at you like you red fox. Got you chasing Hot Wheels like a matchbox. EA running the game and it don't stop. Super cold like I'm playing for Blizzard. Got you all in my sights like Red Dead Redemption. Never gonna slip on my pimpin'. Better get out my way, bitch, I'm on a mission. Really ain't no competition. I'm steady grilling opposition. I'm get up and ready to win. They can play it how they play, but fuck what you say. I'm getting this money today. Last of us like a dying breed. Down the ride like a noble steed. Fatality moves, I make it bleed. That's on any game, that's on any screen. Shut up and give me your money. They said we so lit. Even if I take an L, we coming back just to show that we don't quit. They said we hit. They said we on. They said we strong. They said we go.
I don't know. You're going to have to let me know right there. And we are actually live right now. So hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Behind Them Six with your boy, Ham Solo 05 Gaming here on the TSWS Gaming YouTube channel. Was it skipping for you?
No, man. I was getting down to that. I thought that was a nice intro.
Oh, okay. See, on my PC screen, it was skipping for me. And I'm like, oh, man, I hope. I mean, she's just asking questions about this.
No, I was like impressed.
This is a bad showing. But I appreciate you for being here today. Hello, everybody that happens to be here at this YouTube channel right now. Thank you so much for supporting and being here live. I have a phenomenal guest here with me today that just so happens to be muted at the moment. But let me go on ahead and let our guest introduce herself. Go on ahead and let everybody know who you are so I can show off your phenomenal webpage.
Oh man, yeah. Now that's some kind of setup. I don't know. So I'm Jenesee Gray. You have me here for the gaming community stuff. Right now, I am head of community development at Player XP. I've basically spent the last decade or so working in mostly the indie space in publishing. And I think I have about 14 games right now that I've launched in the past or been a part of. And so it's been like a wild, awesome ride. But yeah, looking forward to chatting today.
Yeah, definitely. And you guys, I have this link in the chat, but you can also find her on many other on many other channels and whatnot. Just make sure that you guys go to this page, check it out, see what it's all about, and follow this young lady right here. She's doing some work out here in the streets right now. And I am so happy and proud to have you here on the channel today. Thank you so much for giving me some of your time, Jenesee, for real.
Oh, awesome. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Shout out to the chat as well. I see Mr. Joanna Dark's the first person to say something up in here. We got a few people showing up just now, rolling through, seeing that I'm live. I'm very happy to have this going. But, you know, something I gotta actually ask you before we kind of get into like the main questions is like what in the heck is going on in gaming right now?
You know, I can assume what you mean, but there's just so much going on that, I mean, are you talking about the layoffs? Are you talking about GTA 6?
Right.
What in particular are we talking about?
Exactly. And that's just kind of how nuts it is. Excuse me, hit the wrong button. But yeah, that's exactly how nuts it is. It's just like which aisle do you want me to drive down, right? So first I want to ask, like, what do you think about like layoffs and stuff that's kind of been going on? Because as much as everybody wants to hype up and say, man, this is the greatest, or feels like the greatest year in gaming, we have like an onslaught of just people, you know, one day you work here, the next day you don't. We just shipped a game. We're getting all these numbers saying biggest launch, biggest numbers we ever had. Yet those same people are saying it's time for you to go.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? Especially right after the Game Awards when the final numbers for the year came out and people were saying, oh, well, gaming is now bigger than movies, it's bigger than this, it's bigger than that. And really just realizing like the reach that the industry has, especially the people that were watching it, and all of that. So that was great. I mean, we had so many eyes on the industry this year, but then you look at, I think it's 6,000 or 8,000 layoffs accompanying that. That's a really weird combo, and you're not wrong. I mean, I myself was laid off last year around March, and it's pretty typical in the industry that the turnover is kind of high. Like every couple of years, you'll cycle around and join something new. But this sort of mass layoff, especially after successes, that's the one that really is kind of baffling. Like poor Destiny 2 people, a lot of them going away as some changes are made. And that makes a little more sense, even though it's really tragic. But some of the bestsellers and really successfully financial wins this year, and then seeing teams like being moved, which is, yeah, I mean, I do not know what the boards and investors have to say on these sorts of things. It is kind of baffling for everyone in the industry and for watching, I would think.
Okay, and before I end it on a good note, because I don't like ending things on sour notes, but I have to ask you one last thing, a little sour. And that is, what do you think about all these leaks and stuff that's been happening throughout this generation, specifically this year? I mean, we got, supposedly the biggest game of the, of the world being leaked by a teenager.
Yeah, and people are at the point now where they're just zooming into the tiniest minute details and then making extrapolations about what the game's going to be about and all that stuff. Having worked in publishing, having worked in development, usually the game state isn't where you want it to be until, of course, your gold master or close to your launch. And it's really unfortunate. I think when people get a chance to see stuff like this that's leaked, because it's really important, especially for marketing departments and everyone, to kind of give the first impression of what they feel is reflective of the game you're going to play, right? And if someone goes in and they see a leak and they get it early enough, and it's really just, not nearly completed, not nearly to a point where everyone's proud to show what they've been doing. Although I'll say GTA 6 looks pretty good, but still, like,
Right.
most of the time it's a negative, and you don't get a chance to kind of make that first impression a second time. So it's really tough on the devs and the team that are really getting to the point where they want to show you something, and now their thunder's kind of stolen. I mean, hopefully they can spin this in a good way that hypes people up and gives more anticipation rather than like detracts from it. But yeah, it's pretty hard to have that happen when you're not ready.
Gotcha. And just one last little piece of this before I hit over to the positive, because the positive one's going to be pretty nice. But like with this specific Insomniac leak that happened, absolutely tragic, including all these different kind of like different types of information that leaked outside of Insomniac that just has to do with PlayStation in general. I'm interested in like like how the heck does like does Insomniac move now, like with knowing that people are out here trying to play their game like right now, and like people actually down and keep in mind some of those people are they're losing the game, or they're gonna have some sort of repercussions if they literally you can tell this IP was on to this server and messing around and stealing stuff and whatnot. So you know general people that were maybe a little too eager to get to it and thought they were slick and decided to download it and play it and stuff like that. I'm curious as to what you think about like what the developer could be thinking when something like this happens. Is this like full stop kind of situation to where they're like, you know what, maybe this game shouldn't come out, or maybe this needs to be pushed back, or maybe we need to like switch up the game completely. I'm because that's what some people are saying, and I don't exactly agree with. But like, what do you think about that, just in particular?
In this particular one, I think part of the real tragedy was that people's personal information was also part of that leak. So it
Big time.
wasn't just purely like a gaming scenario. It was putting people in potential like doxing danger, potential like real actual danger, which is really scary for like the team. And especially when people have strong opinions about a game, and if they dislike something, they can really take that personally. So that's scary on that level. But I think they're going to recover from this. I mean, this is just my exposing with you, whatever you want to call it. Because a lot of times, even when you put out a demo or you put out something where there's an ability for a hacker to get more content than is just in that demo, and they always do every time we put a demo out. Pirate Bay is flooded with all sorts of joy that people get from your games. A lot of times, that actually encourages people to come back to the game because they get a taste of it. There's no updates on there. They're not getting the latest stuff. They're just getting like a slice of it, you would
Right.
say. And if they like it enough, they'll come back and buy the whole thing. And sometimes
I'm
it's
not gonna
actually
lie,
a sales
it
tactic.
got me more excited when I seen it. I was like, everybody's like, "Oh, this looks terrible," and I'm thinking like, did y'all not see any leaks prior that where they show a game and it's like that game ends up not looking anything like that or looks way
Yeah.
more polished afterwards? So I'm not gonna lie, I looked at some of that stuff and I was just like, "Oh, this is gonna be hot."
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
gonna be hot. Like it's a totally different spin. But anyways, I want to go into the positives now, right?
Okay.
Or at
Mhm.
least the main positive before we get to our main questions and whatnot, because I don't want to sit here and dwell. Um, I want to know like what you think about this year in particular, just game wise and how heavy it's been. And do you think this is top 3 of gaming years of all time, seeing that all these big time studios came out to play? I mean, there's still a lot of other studios putting in heavy work. Shout out to, BioWare and stuff like that with Mass Effect in the way future, right? And Fable we've been hearing about, and we're all scratching our heads at with what Sony Santa Monica's working on, because they said they had a new IP that they were thinking about possibly. So I mean, there's still a lot of stuff to come. But as for this year in particular, I want to hear from you, Jenesee, and see what you thought about this year compared to past, because we'll get into it. She's been around for a hot minute, y'all. She knows about the Atari 2600. She knows
That's
about
true.
some of these classic systems that weren't retro for us, but are now super retro. At the right.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
go ahead and
okay.
let me know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at it. Most games take about 2 years to 3 years for a cycle of development, right? So we're looking at 2023 here. So most of the stuff that you're seeing coming out was started in 2020. So I think this is still considering pandemic, things that are results from that. So a lot of things were slowed down during that time. A lot of teams had, issues looking at it being remote. A lot of times, even we had people that were, in things like QA or other areas that were in countries that were being, war torn at the time. And I'm sure there are people right now that are dealing with that. So I think a lot of this is like everything is coming out at once, right? That might not have been the initial plan. It would have been more staggered, but because of these delays, because of the pandemic, because those things that were started are coming out now, along with things that were delayed during it, I think we're just seeing a little bit of an influx of more than maybe people had expected. Which is great for the player, a little hard for the industry, and that it gets saturated very quickly, and there's a lot of choices when people have limited financial buying power. But yeah, I'm going to guess that this is part of that as well. There's been a lot of strange timelines as far as production when it comes to games the last few years.
Okay. All right. But like on a like if you were to say, I want to put this 1 out of 10 out of some of the years. Only name 3. I want you to tell me actually, like, screw the 1 out of 10, just 3. What were the top 3 years in gaming that you remember?
Oh my gosh, from sales point of view,
Nope. Nope.
just
From
from
a
player.
completely personal, like, yo, I just like a year where it just felt like there was more than you could really like play. And in that year ended up leaking into other years, and it's just like, man, this I'm still getting through 2004 or something like that, and here it is
Yeah.
2006.
I gotta say, 2018, my my vault of shame began really in Steam.
That shame.
And I feel like it's been building since then. Just a lot of games that I'm just like, I really would like to play this, and it's part of my plan, and then it just never happens. Or I play like a couple chapters, and then the Steam sales, they just need to stop. There's too many good things on sale that you have to get and then never play. But I
Fair
would say
enough.
like 2018 definitely noticed that, and I started to see like, okay, I think this is the year that there's more games than I can play in a year happening for me, my personal.
Okay. All right, I got you. So before the show, I had you ask, or I asked you a question that I ask majority of the people that come on here. Um, and that was like, where did this all start? Like, what was the very first console that you had available? And like I said just a moment ago, you reached all the way back to 2600. You said you were really big into, what was it? The original PlayStation, is that right?
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because, I'm purely mostly a PC gamer at this point. I do PS5 as well, but for the most part, it's the PC. But back in the day when I first started gaming, it was all console. So, that was the original PlayStation, that was the Super Nintendo, and the Nintendo. I was telling you the Mike Tyson's
Yeah.
Punch Out, like that level of stuff. We
Yes,
were
you were.
Yeah, so reminiscing about the Little Mermaid and challenges and Ninja Gaiden and all that. So yeah, those
Those
are
games
like
were so unforgiving.
absolutely unforgiving. Yeah, that was the thing you played with your family. My brother also gamed, so we would take turns passing the controller back and forth when someone died, and the incentive was basically just to play longer. So, those were my first like game stuff, and then DOS games on the computer, but they were nowhere near the console back in the day.
Yeah. Back in my day. Yeah, right. So I gotta ask, like, what kind of influenced that to start? Was it your brother? Was it like a family member that was just like, like, this is what we do. We got the Atari 2600 during the family time when we sit around and play, Pong or whatever. Like how did it arrive into your life? How did it start for
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the case. But my family was always like a gaming family. I mean, they
you?
were like oh, it's Saturday, whip out life, like that. Like no one wanted to spend time with my parents at all, and that was their like, we must spend time together as a family. So we would play like board games together and all that stuff. And so it kind of matriculated into electronics, and it was mostly my brother and myself, like after school, the way to not do your homework and sit down and play together and try to prolong your gaming sessions as much as possible. And all his friends were in it too. And, like we were close enough in age that there was definitely some like dating scenarios of why I was more interested in gaming as a young person. Like, that was our house was like the place everyone came to game. And so we all just like sat around the console
You
in big
you
groups.
have the spot. Talk about it. So like I'm interested. What was like probably your earliest memory for like party games? What was the game that got everybody hot? Got everybody
Party
like not wanting to
games.
pass the controllers? Because I know those were real fights back then. Give me the sticks, man. Your turn
Yeah.
is over.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, most of the stuff that we were playing were like fight games or things like that. But when it came to party games, I feel like the Wii really brought it. Like that was when you started to have like that. I mean, back in my time, it was like Duck Hunt. You had the real gun. Like you would sit
Mhm.
there and Duck Hunt and then fight each other on that. But I think the Wii, when you started to do, especially when you were able to have they would analyze the room, and you could do the jumping and do all the different like, I'm a marble rolling down in your chute and stuff, like all of that stuff, like where you were physically like participating in the game. That was very cool tech to see come about.
Okay. So I want to know. So you said that was really cool tech, as in being able to play with other people and whatnot. But I want to know from you. So you said you had the 2600, right?
The computer or the console? Because I did have a computer back in the day too, which was,
Oh, okay.
yes.
All right. So I'm going with the console. This
Okay.
All right, right? So you said you had that, and that was like a helpful introduction with some of for console gaming for you, right? I want to know, like, what was like the wow? this can do this. Did it happen soon after that? Did it happen 15 years later? Like, what was that console that you got where you just like you were, wiping it down when you're done using it, wrapping the controllers up, making sure that, everything was looking good. The disc goes back in or the cartridge goes here and don't nobody mess with my wall of games right here. This is pristine stuff. Like what was that console that made you feel like, yo, this right here is a masterpiece?
I gotta say for me, that was the Vita, because that was my first like
Oh,
handheld.
handheld.
And it was just beautiful at the time for the graphics. And I was just stunned at how realistic everything was on that. And just being able to hold it in your hands, that was what really like hooked me on consoles. When I look at the old Atari, I actually played that with my grandma. My grandma had a horse racing game because she liked gambling. So she would do like the horse
Yeah,
racing game, where you would
sure.
you would do that, and then asteroids and stuff. Like, so a lot of people in my family were really kind of into the console stuff back then. But there's a big difference between asteroids and Pong all the way to the Vita, where wow, it's like you're starting to get to realism, which is really kind of the stuff that hooked me.
Yeah, absolutely. And they had like the like touch like the touch pieces on it when you first get the Vita. In fact, it has like these little like mini games that you play to get it set up, which was pretty nuts. They had its own store on it to where you could get demos and stuff like the Vita was like mad expansive in all sorts of different types of way. And it even does what the Portal currently does as well, which is remote play. Like that thing could literally do
It
everything.
was
So
ahead of its time for sure. And still like classic games on there, like, Mortal Kombat, all that like stuff that you will play on lots of consoles. I mean, that was kind of like my first intro to a lot of those. Like, hey, Solid Snake's on there. Like everything, Metal Gear Solid, all that was on there.
yeah. All right. So going from that, I gotta ask you, since you said handheld, I'm kind of curious now, what is it for like one that you plug into the TV? So what was like a console that you'll kind of always just kind of love that was something that you had to either plug into your TV or yeah, I mean that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I have a Switch, and I mostly play like Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and newer ones on it. I
Yeah,
like it
doc.
because, yeah, put it in the dock, I plugged it in the TV, and just use it like that, almost like it's its own system essentially. And Lenovo has a new one out that's a good
Mhm.
challenger to the Steam Deck, which I think is called the Go.
Legion
And
Go. Yep,
yeah, there you go. And that's actually really nice. But I do have a Steam Deck. It dies out of battery pretty quickly, so I don't end
it
up using
does.
it as much as I'd like. But that's another one I feel like if I had the right dock, I would probably just put that in and play it rather than trying to, do work Steam's inherent built-in systems that would put this on your TV, which has never been like ideal for me. I would probably just use the deck. I do like the deck.
Yeah, I mean I got a Steam Deck too, and it's awesome. I actually installed Windows into it so I could play, games. I could like download
Yeah.
natively games off of Game Pass and
Play
stuff
your
like
Epic
that.
launcher on your Steam Deck. See,
Yeah,
the Go doesn't have to. It's basically just a Windows machine. That's the
it
nice
is.
thing about
I
it.
and it's crazy because I bought the deck and then they announced the ROG Ally, and I was like, "You asshole!"
I
And then after
know.
that, the Legion, and I'm just like, "Somebody give me a blanket. I want to hide under it for a little bit." This is frustrating because the whole point of me getting that Steam Deck was to put Windows on it. So then when they came out with the ROG Ally and the Legion Go, I felt defeated. I felt
Aw.
defeated, but it's all good. The Steam, the Steam Deck itself, like the way that system works is so good. It is so good, and then on top of it, them telling you, hey, you can put Windows on it if you want, and if you mess it up, we'll probably be able to fix it for you. That that kind of service is crazy and kind
Well,
of
all my
unheard of.
Linux fans would just went crazy when they saw that. They're like, "Oh, we're gonna hack into that and do everything."
Oh yeah, and I think they totally wanted you to as well, right? It is kind of their point. They want to see what you're doing with it. They want to have some of that data in the background so they can see what they can do a little bit better next time, possibly. But anyways, keeping it moving. So I've got to ask about like the big three that are currently around right now. So Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo. Were you kind of big on any in particular growing up? Like once they started to shrink down, because I mean, back in the day, like especially like in the '90s, there was a ton of different companies, right? I mean, you had
Yeah,
Atari still around, you had 3DO trying to do stuff, you had a Turbo Graphics out here. You think, I mean, then you had the PlayStations, you had the Nintendos, you had all these different things, but now it's kind of consolidated down to like three main ones and then some other like services and PC and mobile,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Was there ever one of those that kind of stuck with you? I'm gonna guess possibly PlayStation because you said the Vita and you also
Yeah.
talked about how you adored the original PlayStation, but am I wrong?
I had an Xbox period where up to the Xbox 360, where I was like in that ecosystem. But I'm definitely like PS4, PS5 now, and a lot of that's decided for me by exclusives, right? Like I'm a huge God of War fan, and
Mhm.
so the PS5 was just like, okay, well, if we want to play Final Fantasy, we want to play God of War, PS5 is the way to go. So, and also, graphically, I think it's always been a little bit more superior. Just even if it's all in my head, then it has Xbox. So that's my ecosystem now, and I stopped buying Xboxes.
No doubt. And I'm kind of curious as well, like where's Nintendo kind of sit in this? Do you still like or you did just say that you still
I
rock with
do
the
have a
Switch.
Switch. Yeah, I do have a
Um,
Switch.
is that something that you're looking forward to the next version of? Because there's rumblings, out there of the Switch
Mm.
2 or something like that.
Yeah,
Are
that's
you
true. I'm not like an OLED. Like everyone got so excited when they would release an OLED version of it, and they would go buy a new one, and then they would have like a version two, and everyone would buy a new one. Like if it's significantly better in terms of like memory, maybe I would get the next one, etc. But honestly, the reason I have the Switch is because my kids really love Breath of the Wild and the whole like Zelda series and the new one, Tears of the Kingdom. So I have it primarily just so we can play that like when they're around. It's not like a something that I play as much. I just find like a lot of the games that I kind of enjoy are not necessarily as family friendly, genre specific as the stuff on Nintendo.
okay? And all right, so that pretty much sums up the whole console portion for me. I'm kind of interested in this last, generation in particular. What has been some of the highlight games for you that you've um really found like time sinks into?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to like me just taking time to game, it's rare and it's hard to find the time to do. Everyone says this, and cry tears, cry a river, right? If you work in gaming, everyone says they don't have time to game anymore. You can't really be sad for the people that work in gaming to say that, but it's true. Like it's hard to find time sometimes to make uh, to make space for that. But the ones I really like when I'm looking to kind of escape and get away are usually like deep story games, really graphically superior games, something that's going to absorb me and kind of get me involved. Like Ghost of Tsushima was just
Mm,
so good, and I'm just
the
really eager
story was
for that to come
insane.
out on PC. Like I played it, of course, on PlayStation, but I want to share it with my friends who don't have that ability, and I'm just waiting for it to launch. I suspect that will be announced this year. They stopped showing the PlayStation only logo on like the trailers, which I believe means that they're getting ready to port that. So I'm looking forward for other people
Ooh,
having a
look at
chance.
you. You looking real close at that at them at them boxes and them commercials and a little bit of that marketing. You like,
I
let's see.
am. I am. And then God of War Ragnarok was just amazing as a story. So I've played all that. They just released an expansion, which is like a roguelite for
I was gonna ask,
Valhalla.
have you played that yet?
Yeah, I've watched someone play it, and I sat next to them and yelled. So I consider myself participating. But yeah, that one looks like it's going to be good too. I've seen like how that's going to work, and essentially that's going to be fun. might turn on the controller for that one. And then the Final Fantasy remake, I'm looking forward to Rebirth this year a lot. So I think they did such a great job taking like a classic like that and remaking it so that it's just really deep and hard to play and good and just stunning. So I'm looking forward to that this year too.
Okay. Now you talked about PlayStation game like Ghost of Tsushima coming to PC just a moment ago. And I'm really interested in your thoughts on this whole because in my opinion, I feel like the window of them saying, we're not going to put things on the PC is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And I think a big piece of that is, they got Nixes, which is helping them get things ported over to PC. They're also using other companies to do similar things, yes, but um I have a feeling that some of it has to do with catching up, making sure that they get all of this stuff done and doing some of the old stuff mixed in with trying to keep up with the new stuff that's coming in. There's going to be a little bit of time, like a little bit of a time period that you have to wait for all that stuff to kind of catch up and then get on there. I'm curious as if you think that there still needs to be like a time limit for PC, or are you one of the people that are like, I want to see this start to come day and date?
Um, a lot of it depends on where it's initially released. So let's talk about games that come out on PC first, right?
Okay.
Um, it depends on that because having a controller support isn't always inherent in PC games. Sometimes it's mouse keyboard, and it takes time to work that out. So if you want to port to a console, you have to make sure that that's part of obviously what you're going to do. So that takes a little development time if it wasn't native to the game initially. If you're talking at something like Ghost that was already on console and you're talking to PC, I would suspect that that's more of a marketing agreement delay because if I remember from publishing, it's usually 6 months that you sign where you're saying, okay, this is exclusivity deal, 6 months on your console, you will support us with marketing and sharing and like making a big deal about our game, and then we will be able to have the freedom to port it to other things. So most of the time you're looking at 6 months plus depending on the deal. So that's what I would imagine. I don't know how long it's been since Ghost, although they did have an expansion for what was the island, so that might be even
Iggy Island.
longer. Yeah, that might be even longer for that because of that.
Okay. As for like games down the line coming in the future, I mean, like this last showcase that PlayStation had, a lot of the games said PlayStation and PC. And sure, you could say, those are a lot of live service games and they want that money like right now. Why not? But as for like a Wolverine game, or let's go into like saying like Sony Santa Monica's new game. Do you expect any of that stuff as it being so far down the line right now to possibly come to PC day and date, or do you think they're gonna hold on to that like at least a year thing for a
It depends on the game. I'm looking to see Sony's new game because there's been a lot announced. Which is the newest one you're talking about?
while? So I'm thinking of games that haven't came out yet.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, most of the time, if you're looking, and if I can just take it to marketing, right? If you're looking to release on a console, you're looking for Xbox, you're looking for Switch, you're looking for anything PlayStation. PC is generally not a challenger to that. They don't usually mind if you release on PC at the same time as you're releasing on that console. But then to release it to another console or even like Epic Store sometimes, like there's always like a little bit of a conflict there. And a lot of times in the back end, when you're looking at least from publishing perspective that I've worked with, I'm just looking for a deal, and whoever gives me the best deal is who I'm going to go with. For something big like Sony Santa Monica, they probably have that stuff in well ahead of time, and people are just like chomping at the bit to get that. But in the indie sphere, it's a lot more like, okay, who will give you the deal that you want, and then that's who you go with, and you make sure that that's your exclusivity. So it's more about that. But the bigger studios, I'm sure they have plans for future IP, plans for future expansions, all that in the works in their marketing plans well ahead of time.
Absolutely, because I did recently listen to one of Rockstar's devs talking to how he was working on Grand Theft Auto 5, and how they kind of port or not port, but they kind of develop the game around the place that they perceive to get the most money first, and they kind of and then second and then third, right?
You hope for it.
Exactly. So I totally see where what you're saying with that, but let's say moving on, I've got to also know, like, do you think that consoles are going to be sticking around in the next coming generations, because we're starting to see more ways of being able to play, especially like with cloud gaming being being a bigger and bigger deal, and being more and more playable for people, or make more sense for people as time goes along. Do you think there's going to be a time anytime within, let's say, the next 2 to 3 generations, so let's say give or take about 20, 25 years, maybe 30 years, do you think that consoles will ever cease to exist?
I don't think so. I mean, I think they were
Thank
one of
you.
the first and
I
probably
agree.
will be in the last. I mean, you see things happening right now where it's like, okay, I can get Xbox and I can play things that are PC. You know, I can play my Xbox games on my PC, and there's ways, you know, that these are all kind of integrating over time, and you can see that happening. But as long as there's exclusivities, and as long as there's like people that want like handhelds for sure. I mean, you do see kind of it moving into a smaller and smaller space, right? Just like technology over time always does. Everything gets smaller and more accessible, right? So maybe we won't see things like the PlayStation 5, that's a whole like, you know, spaceship that's landed on my console area. There it is, you know, like maybe it'll be smaller and more portable, etc. But I can't see that we're going to lose consoles. I think, again, I think they were here at the beginning and they'll be here at the end.
And I think that's a huge driving factor for people's purchases as well. Sometimes people just want that item to do that thing, and that's it. They don't want, I mean, or else everybody'd be on PC right now, right?
Right, right. It's definitely a whole like ecosystem and a whole culture, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, everybody likes a team. Everybody does. We see it in
Yeah.
sports. We see it in business. I mean, sports is a business, but but yeah, we see it everywhere. Tribalism, country. I love my country. Everybody wants something to grasp. Put their fingers around and say, "This is what I enjoy. This is what I like," and I don't care what you say. Right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Microsoft is going to take over the world and force us all to have Xbox Game Bar in every one of our PCs. So how can you say the consoles are going away?
Yeah, nah, consoles are not going nowhere, in my opinion. I mean, it's to me. I mean, it's like saying, I don't know, like TVs are gonna go away or something like that. It's just like, nah.
Because we have phones. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I can watch anything I want on my phone that I can watch on my TV. But daddy still want a new 65 inch. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on now. I mean, this is stuff that we enjoy and stuff that we're passionate about. And plus, we all have our own hobbies and stuff like that. And that's a big piece of the hobby collection and stuff like that. But moving on, now I want to hear about like some of your come up within, gaming, the industry, content, just how you became you in this scene. So the first thing I'm going to ask is, I want you to take me back to where you didn't anticipate doing the type of stuff that you currently do, or was it all in the plan?
Yeah, would it be nice if we just like if we could just foresee the future and plan our whole lives? I guess people do that. It's never really worked out for me. So
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I went to school for graphic design. There was a point where I was in vocal performance. I was looking to do like opera weirdly for a couple years. So between graphic design and doing opera, I ended up landing in the gaming industry, which is strange because I actually do use like all of those skills in the industry. But I started because I was bored as a graphic designer and I wanted something more exciting. I wanted to get into the gaming industry and I didn't know how to do it. This was back decades ago. And podcasting was like a new thing back then. So I started doing podcasting. I did a show called The Gray Area Podcast, just a play off my name, where I wanted to interview people in the industry, very much like you're doing today, which is just awesome and a weird full circle for me, to be honest.
Ah, isn't that crazy? Crazy
Yeah,
how that works.
yeah. So it was like at the time, like inside the actor's studio, where you would like, try to get to know the secrets about like the thing you loved, like what were you doing when you made that? So I'd interview all these people, and it was kind of a way to get to know them and get to know like people in this really small circle that is the industry. And from that, I got a job doing a Kickstarter for an AR goggle set that you would basically like play 3D chess on the ground with, and then into an MMO, and then further on to the industry. So that was like my gateway into getting into basically running communities and working in indies and making trailers and assets and social media and all these other things that are sort of like everybody that's an indie does like multiple stuff. So yeah, that was kind of the gateway in, if you want to call it that.
Okay, so I mean, what I gotta kind of allude to now is you said communities, like working with communities and stuff like that, and obviously you gotta know how to talk. You know how you gotta know how to you know be sociable
Sure.
with people if you're gonna be at the head front of like any kind of community and stuff like. No one says you have to be perfect at it, but you have to be willing at least, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to know from you, like, what's it like being in charge of something so detrimental, in your opinion, to like gaming or in your circle or something just like that?
I mean, a lot of the times I am in charge of building communities where there aren't any and finding ways to make a space for people to find a commonality that draws them together and makes them want to spend time with each other. So, that is what gaming does. It's a very awesome thing that, people from all sorts of different worlds come together to talk about this thing that they're super passionate about. So, honestly, gaming communities, it depends on the genre, but gaming communities most of the time are just super great places. Like people are, finding answers to stuff they want to know. They're just randomly talking about stuff that happened in their day. And it's just really cool to watch like people kind of interact with each other and see who gets to be friends with who and what little like groups they build and who gets to play with who and all that. It's very cool. I'd really like to see them form.
That's excellent. But Genesee, I gotta ask you, like, during that time period, early on, all right. So early on in you trying to, build that resume, get better, do better. I want to know, like, what kind of struggles did you deal with trying to get from A to B?
Well, you have to learn. I mean, especially like if you're not as experienced with talking to groups of people, or you're not as experienced with, writing communications, or you just have to learn like the right way to say something. And community management is a skill. It is a job. A lot of times, it's one of the like least respected skills, I think, in terms of video games. But not just anybody can be a community manager because if you mess it up, you can really cause a PR disaster. You really
Sure.
have to do it well. And that takes time to learn and guidance. And unfortunately, community managers don't often have, like mentors or like a formalized training. You can go to schools like Full Sail and stuff. You can learn how to be a developer. You can learn a lot of like technical knowledge, but there isn't places usually for community managers to do that, or at least there hasn't been into the last few years. So, that's something I'm working with right now. Like I have a convention that we run every year. This is the second year of it. It's called United by Games. It's a 1 day convention specifically for community professionals to learn from each other and to like get educated and kind of have frank discussions about the industry. So, there needs to be those spaces. So I'm trying to work on that too. But yes, you do have to learn sometimes, hopefully not the hard way, where you say something like very poorly and have a consequence. But you do have to kind of gain your feet on that.
All right. And then obviously, because I told you I don't like to leave things on a negative, I gotta know, like, what was a moment where you're like, yo, And I'm talking specifically early on because that's kind of where we are with this whole part of your life conversation, right? In the career, at least. So I want you to also kind of describe like a moment where you're like, this is a win. This is a win, and I feel like I'm elevating.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Sometimes communities don't necessarily reflect the success of a game, right? Like one of my very favorite communities is for the Eternal Cylinder, which is a indie game about this giant cylinder that's landed on a very peaceful planet full of these little, they almost look like cuberts or elephants, these little creatures, and they're just going about their business. And suddenly there's this cylinder like rolling over their planet, like destroying it, and it's a really cool game. But the community
Sounds
for it
insane.
was, yeah, it is. You got to run ahead of it, not get hit. So the community for it was made up of gamers that tended towards younger things. I would say like 12 and up, maybe. And they were really into this game, and especially the strange, weird creatures that were a part of it. I mean, people were drawing like their favorite creatures. They were making up creatures and naming them themselves. They're having dreams about the game, and then writing like pages about like these dreams that they had. And just like every day, they would come in there and talk to each other and just like share all their enthusiasm about that. And like if they had a hard day, they would talk about it, and just seeing like how sweet they were to each other, and just like how they kind of like shared this awesome like creative spirit was just great, even if the game did or didn't do amazingly well.
No doubt. That's pretty nuts because you just said dreaming about it, right?
Yes.
I mean, talk about a successful feeling to kind of grab at your heart, right? And really like, man, I just take a shot of liquor because this is feeling real warm inside right now, right? It feels really good.
Yeah, there's
Um,
some pictures of them doing birthday parties that were themed from the game. Like they were just like
yo,
really like taking this in.
I mean that is a damn near cry moment right there. That you go and it's just full of joy, right? Absolutely full of
Yes,
joy.
that's a great
So
word for it.
so you were talking also about development and stuff like that. So I want you to talk about how you transitioned from, or maybe there was no transition. Maybe it was just another title on top of. Like, how did you go from community management to now I'm sitting at the computer putting in the work?
Well, I will say, a little misconception is that community managers are part of a development team. Usually, the way that works for me is I'm not going to sit down and program it. I'm not going to, be coding in C sharp and all that stuff. But what I'm going to be doing is running early iterations of alpha tests by selected people in groups to play and give feedback. And then I'm going to take the feedback, collate that, and translate it for the designers who are going to say, okay, well, this works or that doesn't work. Let's change this. Let's alter that. Okay, so they enjoy this music, but they don't like that. We need to change how these controls work, or how this feedback works, because they're not understanding the instructions. We need to make those kinds of things. So that kind of feedback is where community and development kind of cross into each other, where you're giving that like, here's here's what works, here's what doesn't work, and here's why people are responding the way they do based on community feedback.
That's wild. So I mean that it's just that's just so much more layered than us fans out here think of it. See, because the way you corrected me there at the beginning was, like, hold on a second, hold up, we're part of the development crew too. Like now, I mean, you just brought up a whole nother question for me right here, and that is, what are some of the misconceptions that us within the community that are not in the development spot constantly kind of get wrong, and you're just like, man, here it is. It's been 30 years, y'all, and y'all still saying this. What like what's some of those things that you're just like, you s you know s smh, you know when you see it?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times people wish that something would change and they'll say, okay, well, this mechanic, can't you just do it like this? And a lot of times it's things like, you know, this is going to take 20 different changes in design to get to what you want. It seems like it's simple, but actually to execute it is not simple. And here's why. And I think it's important to be transparent with your community. And if you kind of teach them like over time while you're building it, like we will tell you why, we can explain this to you if you're willing to be reasonable about it and have conversations with us that are upfront conversations and not freak out about it if we explain that stuff. I think you should. I think development teams should explain that, like, I know you want this, or a lot of times like communities, this is a hard one to explain and I don't often do that, but communities will say like, oh, I really want this in Spanish, like, can you please make this game into Spanish? And it's like, okay, I could make this game and I could
Oh,
localize
bless.
it into Spanish or to a different language. However, the game's already been sold, and the number of sales that us localizing this into Spanish would not be enough for us to spend the money on the localization team to send to actually translate it. And there are times we'll do it with a wash, knowing like, okay, we're not going to make any money off this, but we'll do it because we know you'd really like this language. We're not going to lose any money. We're not going to make any, but we'll just even out. Okay, we'll make it for you. But sometimes those types of decisions are really hard for communities to understand when they're super passionate about something and like can't just make it this thing the way that we'd like it to be made.
No, 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 no. I totally understand what you're saying, and I'm kind of interested in like a moment within rocking with your community where you just felt like you kind of had to like let everybody know they need to calm down or something like that. I'm sure like as many times as you've had hype moments within gaming where everyone's on board, everybody's excited, rah rah rah, yeah, let's go. There's probably been some situations that you found yourself in where you're just like, would y'all relax?
Yeah, I mean, there are times where people get upset about things, and sometimes it's hard to understand like why they're super passionate about that. I do try to look at it like that. Like somebody is invested, and if somebody's upset about something, that means that they care. And that's what I want. I want them to care. So I try to look at like why they care and what it is that I can tell them that's going to help them understand like the why this is happening so they can maybe turn that emotion into something else and become an advocate for the game. So there are times where things like, okay, I'll use the Eternal Cylinder as an example. The game came out on the Epic Store, it came out on Steam as well. When the game came out, Windows, I believe 60, is that right? 64 was a thing, and it was like an operating system that was valid, the OS for Windows, and it it became obsolete and it could no longer be supported. And so when updates would go out on a game, and this is many games actually besides the Eternal Cylinder, like when updates would go out on a game, people would want more content. And so content would be created, but the content was, too intense for older computers at the minimum requirements that were no longer supported by OSs. And so they would already own the game, the content would come out, they'd want to update to the content and play it. But if they did, they were not going to be able to run the game. It was just going to chug and chug and chug. And so you have to explain to people like, hey, I know you really want this free content that we're giving you. We made it for you guys. You asked for it. You're super excited, but please don't update. Please don't update your computer. Do not use this content if you're like using this operating system that's no longer really supported by Windows. We can't. You're not going to run it, and it's just going to crash your game. And then we're going to have to sit here in technical support and try to roll you back and all this other stuff. And people get very upset, like, well, you made this content for people that have the game, and they should support it all the way down. I'm like, well, even Windows will not support this. I cannot do anything about that. I'm very sorry. But there are times where things like that have to be explained. And I can understand the frustration people have, but hopefully they can also understand like why the things happen the way they do.
Okay. And and then lastly about this specific thing, I want to know like as gaming is getting bigger, it's getting bigger and bigger, more people are playing, Microsoft even has this, idea of, billions of players, right? Well, with, the positivity that could bring, there's also the toxicity level that just continues to rise within the industry. Once people, figure out, oh, this is a popular thing, this is loved by many, then there becomes much more critics that you have to deal with, um, as things, garner love and stuff like that. So I'm wondering, as somebody that has been in charge within communities and stuff like that, how do you prepare yourself for, controlling your narrative?
Yeah, I mean, I think knowing, first of all, the expectations of what the fans for this specific IP, like for instance, I worked on Hellboy for a little while before I left that company, before the game launched. No, no fault me. But yeah, I mean, big IPs like that. I worked on John Wick, things like that, where people like really like love this IP and they have an idea of what they want and it should fulfill that dream. Like you have to have a very clear idea of like what they're expecting and make sure that they have a realistic view by showing them either footage or taking them along on the developmental ride of what they're going to get and how that's going to be reflective of the thing that that they love. And there's going to hopefully be people that are going to be pleased. You don't want to set them up to be disappointed. And I think that's not an advantage for anybody, right? Not for the community, not for the studios that are making a game. Realistic expectations and realistically showing them, like Gollum, not a great example, right? Like you need to be showing them over time, like here's what the game looks like. So they have already in their mind, this is what we're going to look at. This is what we're going to be seeing, all that stuff. So it's important to, like, again, set expectations, realistic expectations, make sure that you have transparency, keep people along for the ride, and then listen to their feedback because you may have to make changes. Early feedback is good. Having those alpha tests are good. Finding out what people are going to say very early so you can either pivot if you can, or at least let them know that this is a thing, are also really good. So important to do that. When it comes to communities, and I speak as one of the community in this moment, when we're super passionate about something, sometimes we destroy the thing that we love. And I know that I've been guilty of this too, where I'm just like, I really want to see this made into a game. And then when it gets made into a game, like I'll pick at it, right? Like I want to play this Avatar game so badly because I love the movies. And
In the
I've just been like
background.
waiting. I see it. I've just been waiting because I want to see like what people say. But as a person in the community, what I should be doing is buying it like the first week and paying the full price. It hurts to say, paying the full price, because a lot of times if you want to see more of the content that you love, you need to support the content you love, right?
Mhm.
And so getting in there, and if I say like I want more games that are Avatar based and I want a DLC, I should be in there day one. I should be buying maybe day two after the patch. I should be buying the game and supporting them so that they know that their community wants more content and they're going to financially support it as well as in text and in marketing and other places, right? But a lot of times what we do is we hold back because either something's expensive and we can't afford it right this minute, or it's sometimes more fun to jump in with the critics and to pick at something, and then you won't see a version two, or you won't see another one of the thing that you want. So if you want gaming to be a certain way, you should support games that reflect your vision as much as possible.
Now, here's an interesting question I have for you that has to do with supporting games and whatnot. I don't know if you're gonna slap me in the face after I ask you this, but but this game footage that you see captured behind you was only able to be played for me because of a subscription service.
Oh, okay.
How do you feel as somebody that's worked within the industry about games now becoming more available on subscription services? Do you think that's like you don't have to go super deep into it or anything. I just want to know what you feel about it whatsoever, if you have anything to say about
Yeah, I mean, I don't personally mind. Like, if I pay for a subscription service, that pays me as a developer, like they pay the studios. It's not like if you get it on there, and initially sometimes the game does not get paid, but any kind of DLC will get paid, any kind of extra content will get paid. So for the most part, it's a financially sound decision for the most part. At least people are seeing your game, and hopefully they're buying the more content that you get. Of course, I speak from an indie space, so we're always looking to make any extra dollars we can. But from a player, I like it. I do see an increased movement in people to own games, and I think that's like the downfall of this is subscription service. It's like, okay, it's on here for a limited time. I can play it. All my saves are here, but that's going to disappear in a period
Right.
of time, and I'm going to lose all of that. So, you hope that if you love that, you will buy the game. Whether that translates into the sales that I'm hoping that they do, I don't have the data to tell you. But I mean, I know people that still buy discs. However, games are so huge right now, they don't even fit on one disc. So you're just basically getting a code anyway that's confirming with the server. You don't, back in the day when we have 3 or 4 discs, right, for one game where you'd pop it in and out and pop the next one in. Like you can't fit a game right now on anything. So owning it as much as possible, I think, is a good thing. If you really like something, but if you just want to try it out and you want to have like a whole buffet of games to play, I mean, you can't beat it. A subscription service, I don't think.
I mean, that's 100% why I was playing Avatar off the subscription services, because I was just like, I'm gonna need a toe dip on this one, y'all. Like I just don't know if I'm gonna like it. I don't know if I'm gonna like it, but at the same time, I'm very eager. And
I was
like,
like that with Starfield. I did buy it individually, and I'm a little sad because I want to resonate with that, but I'm not. And I would have done better, I think, to have just purchased the subscription, played it for free on that, used my money toward the subscription instead of the game because it's just not for me. But I see why people do it for sure.
no, 100%. Yeah, it's the reason why I do that. I mean, yeah, absolutely. So many of these and I've done that with, like I said, with Ubisoft Plus, Game Pass really kind of, for me personally, made that whole thought process of reality, right? Because before, it felt a little tougher to try to get into some games, and in fact, I'd say I'd probably spend way more money now that I have this subscription service than prior to the, because I was so, sitting on the edge of the cliff constantly with all these games, and I'm just
Okay.
I'll come back to GameStop when this thing is, $20, $30 or something like that. But now
Right.
it's like, I feel like, I don't know if this is true or not, but I feel like I'm more supportive being willing to get the subscription service and play it now than I would be waiting it out and then getting it like off of a key site or something like that. I feel like it's more supportive just to be like, screw it, I'm gonna go straight into the service, because obviously the person that developed the game or is willing to put it on the service. So I feel like my money is more or less going towards them now compared to 6 months, a year, 3 years from now, or way on by the time that it becomes a retro title or
Yeah.
something like that. Because I look at all these, I got all these old consoles, the Sega, the Genesis, and Saturn, and 64 and stuff like that, and I go back and I look at some of these games, and I'm like, man, I really missed out.
Yeah, there's just so many games, and it's a great way to kind of get that taste, like you're saying. It's funny you're playing Valhalla, like Assassin's Creed Origins. I'm going through on one computer, and on the PlayStation 5, I'm going through the update with Basim
Mm.
for Valhalla. So like I'm having an Assassin's Creed moment, but I saw it in the back. That's funny.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I said, I'm putting that Ubisoft Plus to work right now. I
Yeah.
had to try it, man. It's pretty cool to see, to run around with that old classic style of hiding and constantly jumping into some, like a wheelbarrow of straw and stuff
That's
like
right.
that.
Here's my hay bale. Jump in
Yeah,
there. No one's
right,
home.
right, right. Get me the hell up out of here. Y'all need to quit chasing me. But but yeah, so Going a little further and more into the current era of where you are with this, your content, your credentials with gaming and stuff like that. W- Looking back, is there anything that you wish you could have done differently, or are you like super duper satisfied and just all around happy with everything that has happened?
Yeah. No, I mean, I like where I am, so I wouldn't go back and change anything because I don't know if I'd end up here, right?
Sure.
Um, I feel like the industry is very small. It is very tough. Everybody pays their dues, and I definitely remember like my first couple of years being really hard because I was working for an MMO, so that makes it even harder. But I remember it being really hard. Now I'm kind of in a space where, like sometimes you need to learn, and that's a quick way to learn stuff when things are challenging. So, yeah, I mean, I'm happy. I'm happy where I am right now, kind of moving into a little bit more of the tech AI side of things than I have been before, and, doing some other different stuff.
And man, you keep answering these questions, and then questions come into my head, and I'm just like, dang it! Like I'm trying to get to the next thing, but I feel like this is an important question. You just mentioned AI, and
Yeah.
there are some people that are very not happy with how that could possibly be implemented in gaming. In my opinion, and I mean, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's a good thing, especially for small development teams, people that are trying to make a name for themselves without hundreds of people on their team and stuff like that. I want to know from you, somebody that's working on getting further and further knowledgeable upon AI and building and stuff like that. What do you think about this whole movement towards AI and, you know, computers figuring stuff out for
Yeah.
you? And you just, I mean, I'm sure there's still a crap load of work that you got to do behind the scenes, especially with art and all that other stuff, right? And just all around direction of a game. You can't just, just talking to your computer and oh, you got a whole game, right?
Yes.
And I assume that's what a lot of people think is going to be AI. Is like I just say, "Hey Alexa, can you
Earl
make me
Grey,
this?"
huh? Yes, that's what
Right.
I
So,
want.
so, so I want to know, like, what do you think? And I'm sure you have had a few peeks behind, behind the curtains on some stuff. What do you think about the rise that is AI?
Yeah, I think that regulation's important, right? I mean,
Mhm.
one of the topics that I talk about now a lot is ethics and community in AI. I work for a company right now that essentially quantifies sentiment that the community has in any written platform like Discord or forums or comments on a video or, social media, and takes their feedback, gives it a sentiment score. We like this, we don't like this, here's how we feel about it, here's the most trending topics that they're talking about and how they feel about those topics, what are problems that they're talking about now, what are things they like, what do we need to do about this, how do we categorize the biggest problems. Okay, it's toxicity, it's this, it's that, what type of toxicity. Like data is a thing that I'm dealing with a lot right now. Um, and it's very exciting to have the ability to say, okay, instead of opening 40 different tabs and scrolling into different, all these different places, I have this dashboard that shows me all these things that I can be more efficient at what I do. But also then
That
the question,
accessibility.
right, exactly, be more efficient about that and have a better, you know, detailed, truer, reflective experience of reality. But also then the question becomes things like, okay, GDPR, that's a thing that's happened right now. Like if you want privacy in Europe, people can't just email you any old thing they want, marketing materials, unless you agree to do so. Privacy, that's part of it, right? So in your communities, in your discords, and your stuff like that, people have the ability to take everything you say and do, and build stuff with it. So what is the right thing to do with that data? What is the ethical thing to do with that sort of data? How do we make our communities safer in a way that is ethical, without making everybody subject to all this invasiveness. Like, those are things, right? That's a different type of AI. The AI you're looking at is like, okay, I am a QA person and I want to run a bunch of AI simulations on what's broken and buggy in my game, and it can do it much faster than my QA humans and find these bugs quicker. And that's probably going to be one of the first areas that AI is useful. But that doesn't mean that we don't need people to go through that and verify that and work with AI to do the right things, make sure that this is actually doing what it's supposed to be doing. It just means that we may have some job switches in the sense that people will become more integrated with using the tech than they would maybe just on the ground pushing the buttons. I don't think it's going to be like a huge everybody's going to lose their job and AI is going to take over the world scenario. It's more of a like shifting in how we use technology, and the same people that have the skills to do the thing have the skills to work with the AI who does the thing. It's just going to be a little different.
Yeah, it's just evolution. It really just is evolution because I even asked my one of my buddies, the Don KTR. He's actually a developer as well. He's actually developing his own game right now and stuff like that. And he's been doing this stuff for years. Worked with different companies and stuff like that. And he's telling me, he's like, "Yo, like building God of War back in, I'm not God of War, um, Gears of building a game like Gears of War back in 2006." He was telling me for himself, he's like, that felt impossible. But seeing how we've grown as developers and the tools that we have, the different type of engines that allow ease of use more than previous, some of the script writing, all this other yada yada yada. He was just like, bro, like it's unbelievable how much different and easier it is now than it was back then. And I'm interested, like it sounds like you're like looking forward to some of this AI to come out. You're
Woohoo!
wary, right? You're wary to the point where it's like, hey, we do need to make sure that we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's and not, putting anybody out in the open air and anybody's information out and stuff like that. But it sounds like you kind of see the positives in it and wouldn't mind being part of the forefront that uses it in the appropriate manner. Is that correct?
Agreed. Yeah, I think that's fair. One of the things we need to be careful of when it comes to things like art, when it comes to things like music, all that stuff, where we make sure that creators, get the credit they should have. And I'm sure there will be a whole archive of creators that make things just for AI to use as learning tools to make similar stylistic choices on, and a bunch of other stuff. I know Midjourney is a bit of a controversy right now. People are just being frankly ripped off, etc. But there are ways, I think, to do this ethically and ways to do this responsibly with regulations and things like that. We just have to do it right. But I think the possibilities of making life more efficient for people is great, and I'm excited about that.
Genesee, I freaking love this episode. This was great. I'm learning so much awesome stuff from an awesome person. I'm extremely happy to have you here this evening. Thank you so much to everybody that's in the chat, hitting that like button, sharing this out. I love and respect all of you guys that come here and show support back to me. But this is the kind of stuff that I live for. I mean, I'm very hard headed when it comes to learning, unless it's something that I absolutely adore. And gaming is one of those things where I'm just like, I'm always ready to just sink my teeth into something that has something to do with it. And to hear all of this knowledge, yet positivity come out of you with a lot of these different things that are happening. whether they happened in the past, going to happen in the future, or stuff that you just personally went through. It's very enlightening, and I just wanted to give you your flowers real quick for about that before I moved on to the next thing.
Oh, thank you. That's very sweet.
All right. But getting back to it, I gotta ask, since you've worked on some of these games and stuff like that, I want you to tell me some of your most passionate moments within gaming. So, like, if you wanted to maybe mention a couple of titles that you worked on, or just specific situations where you were in and you were just like, I'll never forget that. What are some of
Uh,
those?
Yeah, I mean, it's usually the people, right? Like, I worked with the team that did Semblance, which was a little game Nyama Cop made, which is an African developer. Uh, it's a little squishy guy that can like change his shape so that he can get into areas, and it's just a very cool, like, cute little game. That was being made at the same time as Black Future '88, which is a roguelike, like dystopian. Um, Very different kind of feel game. And those developers were at a convention together that we were running. They had booths right next to each other. And just seeing like how they bonded over time, just being at this convention together, and the ridiculous things that they did to each other over time. By the time this whole thing ended, the Semblance game had a little Black Future '88 character in it, and the Black Future '88 had some spray paint on the wall of the little Semblance character. Like, it's that kind of thing where it's just people, I think, that make the experiences like so cool. Like right now, I left a job doing. I was a marketing director for a job with a game called Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom. And in Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom right now, the game is not officially launched yet. I'm a little character walking around called Jenesee, Jennessea, like C. And it's just like so cool to see yourself like in games, just like
That's
doing
nuts.
stuff, and just like to see how the developers like really get along with each other, and just like the stupid little like jokes that happen between everybody. Just like all of it is, it's just really like great to be a part of the experience as these things are kind of being made, right? Like sometimes you'll run into people in this industry. I've run into people that make games that I'm just like an absolute fan freak of, and I didn't realize like that they were the developer of it. And you'll just like talk to them at dinner, and you'll just have a great time, and then you'll be like, you made that? And it's just the weirdest, like, you're just like, oh my god, I know you, and you made that thing that I love. It's just it's a weird world.
Warm moments, right? Warm moments are the best. But with some of that, like with having met some of coolest people, right? And being part of teams that are making these games, being literally part of a game, I want you now to kind of go back and tell me, like, some of the people that really inspired you to to get to this point, right?
Yeah. I mean, for me, like the that game company, which is actually Giants, a lot of them are Giant Squid now, I think, is one of like my favorite developers. They made Journey, that was a 2019, no, 2012 game, a long time ago. I don't know if you remember that one. Like they tend to make like experiences. So they're working on oh, let's see, there's a game that they just announced this year, Sword of the Sea. Do you remember it?
Sword of the Sea.
Yes. And Journey feels a lot like that.
Okay.
It's a game where, I mean, I think I can spoil it, right? It's been 10 years since the game came
Yeah,
out.
I think it's
So you
fine.
start off, you start off as this little robed person, right? And you're in the sand, and you have to climb to this mountain that's ahead of you. And the whole game is just like your literal journey going through all of these areas to get to the highest peak of this mountain. And along the way, you run into other characters that are kind of like yourself, and they make little chirping noises at
I
you.
just
And
saw it.
Yeah, and you can respond to them. And there's a lot of challenges along the way, puzzles you have to solve. But the whole thing is just stunningly beautiful. I mean, there's times where you're just surfing down these like sand dunes in the desert with the sun sparkling on them. And the music is by Austin Wintory, and it's just like amazing. And this game, when you get to the end, you
Pretty
figure
chill
out
game.
along the way that the people that you were chirping at are real people, and you didn't realize this is a multiplayer. And so different people that are also playing the game at the same time where they are actually ended up in your game and helped you along the way. And so the idea is like this whole like everyone helps each other, you know, in life kind of thing. And
Like Death Stranding community.
yes, see? But like you didn't know until the end that they were real. And Austin Wintory did the music to that. He's just so phenomenal. He's like a Grammy-winning like uh, composer. And I had him on my podcast when I first started, like, and you know, just being able to like ask him all the questions of like, you know, how did you feel making this and all the other stuff. Like, he's definitely like an inspiring figure for me. And that whole like Kelly Santiago and the group that runs that studio. She's gone on to do other things now for I think it is Facebook she's working for right now. She's gone on to do other things, but they're just like Genova Chan, like that whole group, making games that are experiences that I think are deeper than just I'm playing, which is a perfectly valid reason to make a game. Like I want to entertain someone, perfectly valid. But a lot of the games for Giant Squid and a lot of the games for that game company are like telling stories about, you know, the planet and how you should be more mindful about, you know, taking care of the oceans, or, you know, like how mental health is a thing and you're really never alone. Like they do really deep games, like, you know, that kind of thing, like Hellblade, that sort of stuff, you know, where they're really like getting into some of the deep stuff. I really love like teams that do that.
Yeah. And I mean, it's insane, like the level of detail that some of these games have, like not just like, graphics and stuff like that, but like story, decisions that are being made in the game, some of the ways that they decide to pull on your heartstrings. As you were saying, like I don't feel like a lot of people understand how important musical moments are in games. Like when right when something happens and like just a quick little sound bite just pops in, right? Or how you're just like entering or starting into the game and you're like walking in the weeds and like something happens. Like for instance, like I just said Death Stranding just a little bit ago. There's an early time in the game where you just kind of you just pretty much open the box of the story. You don't really understand what's going on quite yet. But as you're adventuring, you hit this specific point in your travel to where the music just kicks. And when the music kicks, I mean it gets to kicking. And it like is like a kind of a heartfelt type of moment. And I know Kojima loves doing that kind of stuff, right? But when you when you really listen closely to stuff like that and you appreciate it, then you start to notice that kind of stuff in other games. There was but my one of my good friends, Matt, was telling me, "Yo, when I was playing Call of Duty, I don't feel like it sounds right. I feel like it sounds a little weird." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "There's no there's no background music in certain moments of it."
Oh,
And I was like, "What do you mean background music?" Like I literally didn't even, you know, comprehend that there was background music. But then I went back and listened to some of the other Call of Duties, or I just did my fact check, looking up on Twitter or Google and whatnot, and I was like, they did have some ambient music all in these games, and sometimes you don't really realize how put together something really is until it's taken away from you.
yeah,
And
world building, it's a thing.
it's crazy. Just a simple, no, it's not simple, but just a game that's like multiplayer, like Call of Duty has that kind of stuff. So it's just really weird to kind of compare the two because we're talking about, a game like Kojima makes or Jason or some of the games that you had mentioned, but it goes so much deeper than that. It's in like everything. And the
Yeah.
implementation of it is just so important.
I would
The
think
way
even
that you
more
decide to
important
do
in
it.
Call of Duty because you're like, you need to hear all the ambient stuff around you and you need to know like when you're going to be jumped by somebody. Like I'm sure there's indicators of stuff like that would be audio, auditory that you'd need to hear. That's probably really important in multiplayer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, you just don't think about that until somebody mentions it to you. Or you just so happen to be like relaxing and you're like, hold on a second. What did I just hear? It's kind of dope. All right. But going ahead and moving on because we've been here for about an hour and a half, and I like to try to stick to around no more than 2 hours. It usually goes on sometimes, but I'm trying to stick to my guns. New year, new ham solo, right? And trying to be a little bit better about that, so I can respect your time, but also respect my viewers' times as well. So moving on, I got to know, and I call these kind of quick hitter questions. Now, all right. So first of all, I got to know what you're playing right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, we talked a little bit about some of the stuff. The Final Fantasy remake, I think going back to some of that. Weirdly, the Stanley Parable I went back to like recently because it's a hilarious game. I don't know if you ever played that. Just during like the holiday, everyone wanted a laugh, and the Stanley Parable is very much like if you like Monty Python and that kind of sarcasm and uh, really mean wit. Like it's a good game for that. I want to play Detroit Become Human again because that was such a good game as well. But the ones I'm playing again, I'm getting through the Assassin's Creed, two of them right now. I still have who's Aloy's game? Why can't I think of it? Aloy, what's your game? What's her? Oh, it is Horizon, the new Horizon. Like it's Aloy's game, the new
Oh,
Horizon.
Forbidden West. Got
Yes, that one I'm still like working towards through as well. So yeah, I mean, there's a pile of shame for sure, but I think during the holiday, if I pull the trigger and get Avatar, which by the way, do you recommend?
I if you like Avatar, I'd say absolutely. If you don't really
Okay,
know much about Avatar, I would say it's a lot of game, a lot of stuff to do and stuff to learn, and it does not hold your hand.
okay, because it's supposed to be open world, but what I'm hearing from people is that there's not as much reward and exploration as they would hope. But that if you're like a super fan, which I am a super fan of Avatar, then I would probably just like to be immersed in like the world building.
I would say that they're not completely wrong
Okay. You think they'll do
because
an update? I can imagine they got to do an update, right? With maybe some more stuff in like the floating islands or something like something else.
yeah, it like leveling in that game, it's really weird. And like some of the crafting is like it's not that it's hard, but sometimes I'm like, why?
Okay. So the benefits are not clear. Like, why would you go out of your way to do it?
Kind of, right? Some of the mechanics like eating is like really intertwined with your health. So even in fights, right? It's kind of weird. You'll take a health pack or whatnot because you're getting down pretty quickly, and then you run out of health packs, right? But then if you eat something in the battle, it'll help manage your health to continue to regenerate your health quicker. But if
Oh,
you're starving, then you won't be able to regenerate health as quick. And
okay.
it's cool, but at the same time, sometimes it's like kind of like over cumbersome a
Okay.
little bit because like when you got robots coming at you and people trying to flank you, and it's like I gotta eat this meal. when I just want to use a quick health pack or something like that, it's just kind of like it's a little overcumbersome because of the buttons that you need to get to access that. Like I wish eating in that situation was just like the LB or L1 button, just like just quick, just eat that and
Oh,
get moving.
it's not?
But instead, it's like you got to go to your gun menu and then RB and then select the food and then hold the button to eat it. And you got people flanking you at the same time. And it's just like, this isn't ideal. And plus, I don't know anybody to eat a fish meal in the middle of getting shot.
I mean, that's dedication. Put that protein build, you know?
So it does have its wacky moments, but the game is lush. It's beautiful. I mean, as you see, it looks very similar to like the movies and stuff like that, right? The attention to detail to where your character is like 8-10 feet tall and like the regular humans all little, and it's like, how are these little dudes got so much on y'all? It's like it's a really interesting kind of story and whatnot, and like the camaraderie and family around each of like the tribes that are Avatar is really kind of interesting as well. um, but I could see somebody that's not super into that just hitting skip, 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 skip.
Okay. I mean, if I can fly on an Ikran, then I'm in.
But I'm telling you, I think somebody like yourself that enjoys Avatar as a movie and an IP, you'll adore this game, um, in some of the ways that it pays respect to that IP. The being able to fly, some of the the rebel yells that they do,
Okay.
it's very interesting. And I'm gonna tell you this, my favorite piece of it, which I didn't expect to be my favorite piece, because I was just like, well, when I seen it, I was just like, okay, that's like Far Cry, sure. And I'm talking about in the sense of co-op.
Okay.
This is different. This game co-op, it is different. The, the ability for me to be able to fast travel and you don't have to come with me. That's pretty cool to me. Me
Okay.
being able to fly 7 miles or 5 miles or whatever that way, and then we run into each other in the air to go do something, or you're over here looking for this item and I'm over here, you know, you know, you know, causing a reason to call 911. It's very intriguing to be able to do that stuff. Also, some of that detail as for like, we should do this, but it's not raining right now. Like it's weird because some of like the items and things in the mission is like, hey, make sure you get this. Make sure you get this food when it's raining out, because that's when it's the best time to pick it.
Oh,
Yeah, it
okay.
has some of those elements to it, to where it's kind of survival-esque,
Okay.
right? So it's like, all right, well, it's not raining, it's clear skies right now. Let's go on ahead and knock out this mission. And then the catch-up factor is pretty nice too. You can choose either after you get done playing, multiplayer with somebody else. Hey, I didn't really experience that the way that I wanted to. I'm gonna go on ahead and hit, circle instead of X to say I want to go back to my game to where I was, or screw it, I want to skip to where my boy is.
Oh, I
So
didn't
me
even
and him
realize it
can
was
be on
multiplayer. That's awesome.
similar levels. So I just feel like the way that they balance the multiplayer in that game is very interesting, and also being able to fly, being able to get the mounts and stuff like that. When you go to get your flyer, it is nuts. It is nuts. It's a whole adventure. Being able to get like some of the other, animals that you grab, because I don't want to spoil it for you. It's kind of touching. It can be a little repetitive because it's
Okay.
like, all right, I did this with 7 other animals, but it's still kind of like that Avatar feel that they just want you to go through in the game. They want you to feel like you and that, animal are becoming friends, becoming cool. Respecting your kills is a thing in this game. How you kill something will be, oh, this is pristine, or it's worthless. You screwed it up. There's layers in so
Okay.
many different
Wow.
ways in this Avatar game that I just think a person like you could appreciate.
Okay. That's definitely on my list, and we'll see if
That's
it.
my review of Avatar, y'all.
Yeah. As someone who plays The Witcher just to like get different horses and find the horse that's the bone horse, like I would probably play this and just like I would want to like be friends with every single animal and be like, no, no, I have to bond with the one over there that has the stripes because that's how it is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You'll definitely have to dig into it and see, because I think based on what you've been kind of alluding to and talking about Avatar, there's going to be some things that you are just so happy about, but there will be some moments where you're just like, what the fuck?
Okay.
So just anticipate both of them.
Okay. No, that's a good review.
All right. But now I get to ask you a question about gaming, and the question that I wanted to ask is, if you were talking to me right now and I was somebody that never really got into gaming, I'm just like your regular Joe Blow walking in the Best Buy, and I'm just like, I kind of want to get some games, and I'm insane. So I buy a PC, I buy an Xbox, I buy a PlayStation, I buy a Switch. I just say I am getting into it. What are 3 games that you're going to tell a novice that they need to get into and try to see if gaming is really for them?
Oh man, you're asking me to pick three out of all the games.
Hmm. And let me put this caveat out there as well, if if it even is one. It can be games that are also backwards compatible. Because I feel like that opens it up a little, because sometimes the classic games are what really help us understand what gaming even is.
Yeah, I mean, for somebody that's never played before and doesn't even like know their genre, that's really hard, especially like all time. Hmm.
Let's say you're talking to somebody that you know, and they're
Okay.
and let me go on ahead and just make this simpler. I like action movies.
Okay. I would probably take them into Borderlands with me. That's like
Yo, I
something
love it.
we could
Let's
do
go.
together. I do love Borderlands, so we could do that. And it's
Mine is my
funny.
girl to
It's
this day.
lighthearted, violent. We could do that. Yeah, so I'd probably start with that and see. I mean, maybe they're more of a Dungeon Defenders person, right? Maybe, but I think Borderlands is like pretty appealing universally. I think people would like that, you know. So that's probably the first one. Let's see. I think everybody should play Gris because it's just an amazing game and it's just super beautiful. So if they want to spend some time alone, I think that's a good one. And then I don't know, like something silly, like maybe Monster Prom or let's see, Psychonauts is also really good. Psychonauts 2, Tomb Raider, really good. Tomb Raider is super classic. I mean, that has grown like throughout the years. Like I feel like everyone should play Tomb Raider.
You
That's
talk
one of
about
the
action.
three.
That's a classic one.
But yeah, yeah, I don't know. That would be a super tough decision, I think. But I would have to like lay out a buffet and say like, what kind of genre do you want? And then those would probably be some of them.
Okay. And now this one's more personal, of a like top, this one's more personal in the sense of I want to hear from you. So like,
Okay.
um, what 3 games would you say were the best 3 games that came out in the last 365 days? So back to December 21st
Ooh.
of 2022 to now, what games are the best 3 games that you enjoyed during that time?
Okay, I'm gonna say The Witcher. I'm gonna say the new the God of War, uh, probably
Ragnarok?
Ragnarok, yeah, for sure. Uh, I mean, I haven't finished it, so I can't necessarily say Horizon, but I liked Horizon Zero Dawn so much, but I don't know if this is going to live up to the expectations of that one for this year. I don't know if you've completed that game yet.
Yeah, yeah, I beat Forbidden West, but I did not beat Zero Dawn. Very backwards of me, but yeah, that's how it went.
Okay, okay. So that or ooh, I mean, did Ghost of Tsushima come out this year? Because I still think that's such a great movie. I mean, I always like default to Fallout 4, but I don't realize how long ago that was. Like, it feels like it was just yesterday, but Fallout's an old game at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah, yeah. Fallout was a little bit ago.
Yeah, I know.
For like Fallout 4 was 2015, I want to say,
I know it feels like
and
yesterday.
Ghost of Tsushima, I want to
Was
say it
that
was 2020.
2022?
I want
Was
to
it
say it
that
was,
long ago?
yeah,
Oh
because
my
I think
gosh.
it was up for the same awards during the time of The Last of Us 2.
I mean, I haven't played Baldur's Gate, which everyone says is so great, and
Right,
everyone seems to think that that's amazing. I mean, Spider-Man 2 would have to be like a contender, right? Like that is also amazing.
good game.
Let's see. Those are pretty much the ones from this year that I've played, like that I enjoyed. Like I tried Cyberpunk. I couldn't get really into it. That was kind of this year's thing. I haven't played Metroid Prime, like the remastered version, which I really do like Metroid as a series, and I've played like most of them before, but I can't say that that's like my favorite. So I guess I've missed a lot of the ones from this year, but those are the ones I played. Jedi Survivor, I played that,
Yo,
which is pretty
that
good.
game was hot.
Yeah, which is pretty good.
That game was real nice. All right. So yeah. Yeah, I like those games. Definitely God of War, Ragnarok. I 100% of that game. That was hot.
Ah, yes,
That was a good game. I still haven't played the DLC for it yet. I don't even have it downloaded yet.
you should.
But I'll definitely give it a try. I'm just overloaded right now with games. Like I said, I just got that Ubisoft. That Ubisoft plus subscription. So I'm looking to like yo, I got to make my money
I
count.
know.
And plus that Avatar game, I turned it on. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go through this game. I turned it on and I was like, man,
I
this thing is big as hell. Like this
paid
is
a
gonna
lot
be
for
a
Starfield, so I feel
problem.
like I have to finish that, which is,
U-
you know.
Ubisoft Plus knew what they were doing, dropping this game in the Ubisoft.
See,
They did. They're like, you're gonna download it, and like if you enjoy it, you're gonna be on this sucker for a minute.
I like Ubisoft because they give you like the free stuff every week if you go to the Ubisoft store. And so I just sit there and like download like skins for birds and other stuff. I don't know if you have a subscription if you do it, but if you're like on a PlayStation and you're playing an Ubisoft game, you can go to their store and then just like get free stuff just for like checking the store every week, which I do.
No doubt. That's wild. Like these subscription services are insane now. And one subscription service I'm looking forward to getting bolstered up and bigger just as time continues to go on. Or actually two. Nintendo and both Nintendo and PlayStation. PlayStation subscription service right now, it's hard for me to really love it because I have Game Pass already, and it's like a lot of the games are similar in both of them. Obviously, first party on one, and the other, right? But on the PlayStation One, I beat a lot of those games, or I own them already. And then like the thing that Xbox has going for it is the day one of their own games, which is still mind blowing to this day that they do that. But it's wild also to see how many third parties people said, "Yo, we're gonna drop our stuff day one on there too," like Liza P and stuff
Right.
like that. So for me, I'm just like, PlayStation, come on now, y'all can do something too, but I just don't know. Like their business model is just totally different. So I just don't know how that's gonna come down. But I'm like this year, I bought a whole year's worth of PlayStation Plus Premium. I didn't really use it a whole lot.
Really?
So it's just like, man, I'm probably gonna hold off on that until but they are adding some stuff to it. I'm hoping, and I don't know, maybe you can answer this question for me. Do they got Crunchyroll on there? Well, your brother was watching Crunchyroll.
Crunchyroll. I don't know. I'm gonna look at it right now because I want to see what's like coming up. I'm like looking at the internet while we do this
I
because the
will I will buy another year if they have Crunchyroll.
Crunchy. This is a really ridiculous thing to be irritated about, but the PlayStation OS, where you just turn it on, this is first time it boots up, right? It's got a background if you don't have a custom like background, and it's just got the PlayStation like ambient noise and stuff. I've been so disappointed with the PlayStation vibes, like background and OS. It reminds me of like those really like lame solo cups from like the 80s that have just like squares and circles and X's and like it's just really it's a bad design. Every time I see it,
Hey,
I'm just like, you can do better, PlayStation. Try harder.
everybody has their tips about, especially when it's your favorite thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like when I get frustrated at Xbox or PlayStation or Nintendo, like it's for me personally, it's like when I get frustrated about my Xbox, I feel like I'm yelling at a QB on a team, right? Like come on, man. Let's stop throwing them damn interceptions. Y'all need to figure something out over here. Like you know what I'm saying? Very sports influences the way I kind of think of this stuff.
Okay.
But
Now,
but
see,
but
I'm reading about this though. It says that Crunchyroll, starting on December 5th, will be added to Sony Pictures' core movie-based service that PS Plus premium subscribers have access to. So you may be able to get Crunchyroll in this.
mm-hmm. Because I love it when my subscription service has multiple purposes. I do. I really do. Like
No
like like the whole
fair.
Xbox one. When I love that I can get points to put towards buying a brand new game.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, I'll be honest, like people hate the Epic Store, but I sit there and get download this free games like
Free
all day
games all
long.
the time. I don't even care about Epic that much, but I'll turn on that store and get that
Absolutely.
game. You know what I'm saying? I mean, free? Okay, sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
Who
No,
am I to
I
say
have all
no?
my like HBO and Max and this and everything on the PlayStation. I just move over to the apps. I don't even like use TV anymore.
Yeah, so looks like I'm getting another year of PlayStation Plus Premium.
Where you go. See,
I
mine
mean,
says you get
yo,
points on PlayStation Stars, so your audience is telling you points are where it's at.
yeah, I know, but they're a little bit more difficult to attain over there compared to where I can just turn on my PC and look around on Edge. or I can, like Microsoft made it really easy to get money. I mean, they're kind of pulling back because they made it so easy. They're starting to pull back on it a little bit,
Okay.
which kind of pisses me off a little bit, but what can you do?
I feel like
Uh,
Discord has a lot of like free Xbox Gold stuff. Every once in a while, they'll throw you something on Discord, like a discount.
no doubt. No doubt. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, it's just what you're willing to, dig up and look up. You'll figure it out for yourself. But going ahead and moving along, because I mean, I told you, I tried to be getting out of here within and see, this is why I said this a half hour ago that I need to start wrapping it up
I
because I knew
see.
this, I knew it was going to go this way. So let me go on ahead and just continue on. As for okay, so I caught up with where I am. Um, I need to now know, and I know you've worked with games, on games, within the industry and whatnot, but I still got to ask you because everybody has a favorite. What is your favorite studio? Like, as a fan sitting back, what's your favorite studio and what game best represents that studio?
I like Giant Squid. We talked about that a little bit before. Abzu, have you ever played that? That's a really good game. It's like underwater kind of experience, going through just, I guess, appreciating like nature and like, ecological conservation and stuff like that. And it's a really like beautiful game. I think everyone likes Sony Santa Monica. They're also like great. Let's see, like indie studios that I like. Uh, I mean, Rebellion's a good like company. I know a lot of like friends that work there, etc. But I think Giant Squid for sure. If you remember that we had Stray this year, they're also that studio who made that. Let's see, they're also like a favorite.
Annapurna.
Yes, Annapurna. They
I
make
had
a
to
lot of
sit
good
there
stuff.
bland and think about it for a second. So yeah, Annapurna. Yeah, dude, Annapurna constantly putting out heat.
I rage quit that game this year. Like,
What?
there's parts where you just
Wait a
like,
second. Why?
no, okay, so there's a section, I don't know if you've played, where you have like the eyes and the walls, and you will wake them up after pushing one button, and you have to run to get to the other button to hit the button before they go to sleep. And if you don't like time it just right, like you'll get killed. And there are just so many times where I've just like died repeatedly over and over and over. Where I'll just like rage quit it for a week and I'll be like, okay, straight, we're done, we can't. And I'll come back to it later. Like I'll just sit with my Switch. That's one I play on my Switch for sure. But no, I have rage quit that game like so many times.
Man, I think was it them that worked on trying to think of the dang game, the dang name of the game. Not now. You got me looking it up, looking stuff up. Annapurna Interactive Games. It'll pop right up if they did this one.
The one I played this year was Pathless from them as well. Like that was their other like popular one. A lot of the stuff on their website, stuff like never played before, but
Oh
The
yes,
Pathless was good.
12 minutes was great. Even though that story was freaking tragic. It was absolutely tragic what you ended up finding out in that game. The Artful Escape was hot as well.
Okay, 12 minutes is all in like Japanese, so I don't know what it's about. The whole like, I don't know. The page is not in English. I'm not sure what is the descript. What happens in 12 minutes, or unless that's part of it.
Like 12 minutes is 12 minutes is how long it took for that situation for a situation to happen.
Oh,
That happened within the game, and you're kind of playing with time in that game, but also your character is really he's in the middle of some pretty, excuse me, but some fuck shit. And it's like pretty bad. And the more that you find out about what happened, the worse it gets. And I left that
okay.
game after I beat it like that was phenomenally awful. Like it was a phenomenal game. But like that story was like one of those movies you watch and you're just like, so that's it. That's the end. That no happy ending, in my opinion. Like that nah, like I can't rock with that. That is bad, but I remember it so vividly because
Mm-hmm.
of that. So this is so I think that they did a phenomenal job with that. Artful Escape was another big deal to me. I loved that game. I made a whole like little mini video of me loving on that game and whatnot. Cocoon recently was very hot, but the game that I was thinking of is not showing up here. So scratch it, I guess. Whatever. All right, but anyways, moving on. So what are some games that are slated in the future that you know about that you're really looking forward to? You actually mentioned one that hasn't came out yet.
Yeah, Sword of the Sea. That's the one. I'm looking forward to that. Senua's Saga is coming out, I think, this year as well. That's like the sequel to the original
Hellblade.
Hellblade. I'm really looking forward to that as well. Like it looks
That
super creepy and just like exactly how I want it to look.
that
So,
visual
so
fidelity is just insane.
yes.
So okay. So those are a couple games that you were looking forward to. But now here's one of my favorite questions right here. If you were to go, let's say you go to like a local game store and they just have like all the great games that you love, right? And and you have to pick two IPs that are currently just dead. They're gone. You get to grab those IPs and then remake them with the highest budget that you want.
Okay.
GTA 6 money.
Wow. Okay.
What are the two games that you're picking to just go balls to the wall on?
Okay. Do you remember the Black Cauldron? Like the one of the early games. Like it was a PC like click and point.
Nope.
Uh, here's your little 8-bit dude, and it's based on the story. I don't know if you ever read that. I think it's what is it, Lloyd? The last name is going to escape me, but it's a great story. Like a little like apprentice guy discovers this like cauldron that brings people back to life that's been held by this like evil king guy, and he's raising like an army of zombies essentially, and he has to like get it back, and in order to save everybody, his best friend like jumps into it, and that's how he saves everyone. But at the time, it was like a little 8-bit point click game. And I think it would be so cool to see it come back and be like Final Fantasy level of like realism, like detail, like here's your whole story, that where you could actually like fight little World War Z kind of action of zombies at the same time as you're like trying to get to this cauldron and stuff, this like evil king. I think it would be awesome.
And then what's the next one? There's
I
two.
want a version of Ninja Gaiden that isn't like horrifically hard, like tough, like Souls, like a Souls game, right?
I'm trying to
Like,
get my ass kicked.
yeah, like it's so hard. I just want like a more story based game, because like when the one I enjoy has a little bit of that like crunchy roll where it's kind of a comic, it's kind of an anime, where the little guy's face comes here and the other guy's face comes here and they talk and then they go back. Like I want like the story part of that game, because not just the combat that's so difficult that you have to like be a Dark Souls expert to like complete the game, but I'd like more of like a story based version of that game, I think.
Okay. So those are two solid picks. One I never heard of. That first one, the
Yeah.
Black Cauldron, was that what you called it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I never heard
Super
of that
old.
one.
Let me find it. I'll send you a link. It's like embarrassingly 8-bit.
A link that I want you to for sure send me is a game that you talked about earlier. Is like one of the first games that you talked about. You said the
Was
kids.
it Mike Tyson's Punch Out? Or
No,
which
no,
one?
no, 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 no,
Which
no. This
one?
was a game that you said like kids had birthday parties on.
Oh, the Eternal Cylinder. Yeah. Here, look at this in case you want to show it. There's the Wikipedia. How old is that? Dang.
Let me see this. Black Cauldron. Good lord. Okay, yeah, the novel 1965.
There you go. No one's seen that IP in a long time. Free for the
And,
taking.
and the game was 1986. Man, you was reaching.
I played that game.
You was reaching far back. You went way back in the past with that one. That's hella interesting right there. I love it though. I love it. I love it because I never got that on this episode ever before. I never even heard of that game until you just brought it here to my attention right now. But one last question that kind of is, but you can tell me how you feel about it. Is and this is one of my closing questions: is what for you, Genesee, frustrates you in any aspect of gaming currently?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a bunch of things. One is having time to play, right? Another one is sometimes the dichotomy between the player's opinion of a game versus like reviewers' opinions of a game. So if you look at Metacritic and you look at like here's the score by the reviews that come out, and then here's like people's personal comments, like sometimes there's a gap there between like how people feel about something versus like how reviewers feel about it. And that's always interesting to me, especially as someone who has to live with the ratings that reviewers give. And then your game is very like marked by that forever, right? It's always interesting to see that, and especially if you do like a bunch of updates or you really like have a struggle for a launch in the first week and you make some changes, like um, seeing your Metacritic score haunt you forever is as a challenge, I think, when it comes to being like in the industry if you don't like nail it the day of launch.
How scary is like launch day for for a person like yourself, or speak, or a lot, or I guess I'm allowing you just to speak for developers in general, just like what's the balance between excitement and terrified like?
Yeah, I mean, there definitely is that balance. It feels a lot like a NASA launch, and I honestly like run it that way for like my teams when I do it, because everybody has something to do that day, right? Like everything. Okay, so the trailer has to go live right now, so we have to push the press releases and updates out, make sure they're done. We have to like make sure that the build goes live right now. We have to let the community know right now. Like there's everything happens in a certain order, and it all happens in like 15 minutes. So it's a very exciting like moment when you hit the button on Steam and like make it live. The page is live now. People can download it. The update on Steam just went live, so everybody can see like, and everybody gets pinged on the wish list that the game is up and all that. And then you just like watch Metacritic scores come in. You watch the reviews go out. You watch Twitter start to talk about it.
How do
It's
you
a
get to sleep?
those are the days like that you aren't sleeping a lot as a lead up to it, which is why I usually tell like the developers don't go in line after we launch, like go have a party, go do something else, because you're likely to snap and say something you don't mean because you haven't slept in days as you're trying to get this out. You're really like tired because you just want everything to be perfect and this is your baby and now it's out and people have feelings and you don't need to like say something you're going to regret if somebody doesn't like adore this as much as you want them to. So stay off Discord, stay away. I'm going to handle that for you. Usually is what I kind of tell them, like relax. But yeah, it's super exciting, and the adrenaline is just amazing. Like you're not tired that day. You're just amped because
Oh yeah.
it's all coming, it's all happening, and you're watching it all come in. And it's just I love launch day. Launch day is exciting. The less if something isn't happening, that's a bad sign. Like the more that's happening, the more excitement there is, the more people say things, the more news articles, the better for your launch. If it's very quiet, that's not a good sign.
How do you how do you navigate, or how exactly do you and by the way, this is like a side question before the last question point five, I guess, because it's like kind of a two-piece question I wanted to ask here at the end. But but before I get to that, I'm just curious, like how does one like navigate how to keep your cool, when people are coming at your neck about let's say a game isn't what people thought it was, and it's like getting like 50s or 60s,
Mm.
and it's just like the boss at the office ain't feeling it, and you are proud or happy, or there's some people there's like a group of people that are so proud, but then there's some that are just not exactly feeling that way. How do you balance the temperature in the room?
Yeah, I mean, that can vary. Like sometimes when you launch a game, you know that these are the pain points and that these are the things that are not going to be received well. And launching it, like we had to launch it, we would have fixed it, we would have liked it to be different, but this is the timeline we had. It had to come out. Like sometimes when you launch that game, like okay, this is how it's going to be received, and you hope that you've prepared people ahead of time, like that these particular areas might be a little bit rough. It's when you find out like if you've built up goodwill with your community, right? That's a really hard thing to quantify, like the value of goodwill. But if you've been transparent, if you kept them, abreast of what's going on, if you've like given them realistic expectations, they shouldn't be super shocked. And that's just your immediate community. You're not obviously able to talk to everyone across the internet all the time forever. So, reviewers say what they do, and sometimes they're real mean. The worst is when you like love this game and you think it's great and everything is like just exactly how you imagined it, and you launch it and it's people don't like it. And that's the point where it's just like, oh my God, this is really, really upsetting. And I've been in situations like that. Like I can name one, Phantom Doctrine. It's a turn-based tactical game. I want to say that was 2017, 2018, a while ago when that game launched. And it was exactly as the developers had imagined it would be. And we were ready, hit the button. Community hated the line of sight mechanic. They said, this is unfair. We feel like you're shooting through walls. We feel like, when you peep out behind the corner, it's not fair. We don't understand this. We hate it. And so immediately we go into a mode of like, okay, let's understand what the community has a problem with and let's fix it, even though it's not how we designed it this way. It was supposed to do this, but they don't like that. That's a failure in our QA testing. We should have figured that out earlier. We didn't. We're going to fix it right now. And so within 3 days, the entire line of sight mechanic was redesigned and rebuilt and put into the game. Throughout those 3 days, live streams were happening like most of the day, keeping people in the loop of what was going on, like having developers talking to people, having like entertainment going on, as we did that, having, multiple updates a day on Steam where, the text would be written for them, explaining why it was like this. Yeah, multiple. Like that whole weekend, that development team was just heroes. Like from Thursday to Sunday, like they'd fixed that entire mechanic and redesigned the whole thing. And at that point, like you saw the review scores like turn around, and you saw the recommended go up to very positive versus like not recommended. Oh. And so that's what you do. You try to pivot. You try to fix what you can if you've messed up. But you hope that's not the case. You hope you've done enough community testing beforehand. You hope you've done enough QA. You hope like this segment is representative of the larger group. But yeah, I mean, it can either be like a great day launch, or it's like everybody get their helmets on because we need to do something. So it can go many ways.
And then with that being said, like you hear a lot of this stuff, I'm sure, like this game should have been QA tested better. Like this, like who's over there working in QA and they didn't see this? Like, how does that add up in like a mind like your own, where you're trying to be like, yo, we did have QA on it. People been playing this game. Is it that it's releasing to so many people and things are breaking, or is it like where's the disconnect? I guess compared to like when somebody picks up like somebody gets a brand new game and they're like, this game is broken, and everybody and they mama knows that's honest truth. The game's broken.
Yeah.
And then we look over at the development team and say, how did you not know that this happened? Is that like a deadline situation where it's just going ahead and put it out? Because a lot of people think that's just like you hit like a lot of people believe that, oh, this team must have just hit a point and just vomited it out. Like Cyberpunk, for instance. Yeah. People look at Cyberpunk and they're like, how in the world did you not know this was going to happen?
Yeah. I mean, thankfully, the games that I've worked on with the studios I've worked on, they have not been in a position where they're like, just hit the button. There is definitely here's the budget.
There is a real situation where somebody is like, just hit the button.
There has been I know at least one game that I was working on at some point with people that I wasn't working on toward the end, that the button was hit and it was already like they knew this was going to be a problem. But thankfully, at least in this indie space, there hasn't been where it's like we know this just doesn't work. This just simply doesn't work, and we made it live. I understand why it happens. I mean, you have a budget from the beginning to the end, and by the time, even if your production's really good, by the time you're ready to launch a game, you're usually well extended beyond your budget, or at least at the very end of it. And there comes a point where you just have to get the game out, and no matter what state it's in. Now, it's really tragic if that is an unplayable state. That's not fair to the players, and that shouldn't happen. But I understand that it does because you just run out of money and you need to get it out. But obviously, if you're going to sit there and fix it afterwards, you should have just fixed it before you launched it.
Right. All right. And then the last question, point five, I was going to tell you about, and the way I'm going to do this is a little differently, and I'd say actually a little bit more intriguing. Is I want to know from you personally, what are some things that you are really looking forward to as your career and everything expands? What are some things that you really see yourself taking part of or being a big piece in?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be a really good year in that, I have a number of physical conventions planned that are, unusual and good. I think that United by Game is the one I mentioned you earlier is going to be fun. That's going to be March 18th. That's actually up on Eventbrite at the same time as GDC the first day. It's fun to like have those in-person things that you can do, especially if you're planning them. But for me, like I have a soft spot for community professionals because in the jobs I've worked as a community professional and also as the stuff I was talking about with the data for player XP, etc., I can see like especially in this industry that there are maybe one or two people even in huge games like Destiny 2, like big games where there's just one or two people dealing with millions of players.
That's
and
unfair.
and
Good
you
for you.
can't have like 500,000 people in a Discord or a million people in a Discord and one person like being in charge of that Discord. Like it's just too many people for one person, right? It's
You
just a
need some
really tough.
shifts. You need
Yeah,
people
it's
to be
just
on shift.
you do, and it's just a very like under budgeted, like high expectations, like unrealistic sort of you know segment of the industry that I think needs like as much help as possible and as much like attention on shining a light on having some kind of work life balance and understanding that these are the people that are in the front lines basically hearing what the community has to say, and it can be a super positive experience, but it also is the shield between the people that are doing the coding or the art or whatever and the community, making sure that they don't hear the worst of the worst when that's said, and it can be a rough like gig on your mental health and everything else. So I'm
No
just
doubt.
trying to just support like that segment of the industry as much as possible, like what I'm doing. I'm looking forward to like being able to make a difference there in terms of actually having hard data to back that up rather than just my opinion. And hopefully that will get some more attention this year. So that's one of the goals that I have. And just for me personally, I think talking more about that tech stuff, speaking at panels. I've had great opportunities to like go to universities and judge some of
Yep.
the cool projects that the senior
So cool.
students are doing, like their final projects in game design, and
I
see
bet they're
them.
so proud too, and you get
There's
to
it's so cool to see like
so proud to get
the fresh
judged.
faces, the so enthusiastic before they've been beat down by life, before someone said 2 out of 4 stars. Like, this is their project. It's very cool. So just getting a chance to kind of see that and like talk to people more. It's a very good upcoming year. It looks like for me.
Okay, and now I want you to kind of paint this last piece of this question kind of with a broad brush. All right. So I want to hear what would be a dream come true to you for the gaming community.
I mean, should I just say Half-Life 3? Is that
Oh, snap. Yo, reaching for the stars.
Right. No, I don't know. A dream come true for the gaming community. Yeah, I thought about that. I mean, essentially, what we're seeing in terms of data and everything else is that toxicity actually affects sales. So having a community that is a positive community, or at least a constructive criticism based community, is actually important for companies to foster, for more than just we just decide that things should be positive. From a sales perspective, it is important to foster. And if we can get companies to dedicate more time to putting team onto community, putting the team into places where they can listen to what players have to say and take their feedback into consideration, that's actually better for the sales of the game. So reducing toxicity is, I think, a great goal to have for community overall this whole year.
Do you think that the current, like, people covering gaming news and stuff like that are doing a good job in steering it into the right direction, or do you feel like they're steering it kind of into the toxicity itself?
I think they're reporting on truth a lot of times where it's like, okay, this is what people think about the game. I know that people do get riled up when they read articles about something like that is a criticism and they tend to pile on, etc. But I don't think that I would blame the press for that necessarily. I would say that the places that people are gathering, like Discord or Reddit or forums or stuff like that, like those are the places where I think a lot of that stuff is happening. And I think just a little information shared to them would really make a big difference. Like their toxicity is either because they're unchecked and they are allowing like some people that are really just the cause of that to have free reign, or they're just confused and upset because they don't have the right information about why something is the way it is, or that it's going to get fixed or it isn't, or why, and all that stuff. So I think having people there to kind of talk to them and share that, or to shut down people that are just there to just rile people up, is also a good idea.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, and I'm going to kind of leave the I'm going to kind of I'm going to wrap it up with this, but I think the biggest issue, in my opinion, when I look at gaming and the community, and it's very similar to um, a lot of other businesses that are very outside and in communicating with their buyers or people that subscribe to them or follow them and stuff like that, are clarity. And it's just like, you don't we, like, whether it's on Twitter, YouTube, just average customers in Best Buy, whatever, right? We don't really understand how gaming is really made. So when we have our thoughts or hopes on something to be made a certain way or done a certain way and whatnot, we almost feel like we're yelling at a wall. But then on the flip side, of the developer is like, sometimes they're just like, yo, I can't really tell you how we did that, or how we're going to go about it, or I'm just going to flat out not answer because I don't want to deal with the pushback. Like, I feel like that's like just a massive obstacle that's going to be super tricky to kind of course correct. Because when you look at something like sports, there's explanations for why this pass wasn't caught in
Oh,
bounds.
like the commentators alongside while it's happening.
There's
Yeah.
also that too, that where people are literally explaining to you why this just happened on this play, or why these statistics make sense, or why this player is starting to not be as good. You can see it game by game by game with all these news outlets picking it up and talking about it between the games as well. Where
Yeah.
in this industry, it's like game comes out, everything's a question mark. And trying to describe it sometimes creates a bigger question mark. And then there gets to be a point, like I said just a moment ago, where people are just like, I don't have any more time to explain this to you. So then the
Yeah.
disconnect happens, and then you get all this like rowdy, un uneducated, but some being valid in their opinions or thoughts
Yeah,
towards it.
absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I do with my teams is as we get closer to a launch, we do live streams with the developers and we do Q&As during the live streams. So they will show the game before it's even out and they'll just play like a little bit of it and show like, okay, well, here's where we are at the latest and blah, blah, blah. And they can get questions from the community too. It has a twofold purpose. One is to address any of that stuff that you're talking about that people will want to know later. The second is like when you see the face of somebody that's making something that you love, it becomes more personal, right? Like game developers are people. We're not robots like back there just pushing a button, right? Like it's not all AI yet, right? So you want someone to root for. You want to know a little bit. You want to feel like a little connection with the people that are making the stuff. So having someone that you can talk to and see and actually realize like this is the person making the game, if it comes out and it's not exactly what you thought, you're less inclined to be like, well, Joe, you should jump off a bridge because you've seen Joe and Joe's been on the live stream, those last few weeks, and you don't really want bad things for Joe. You just want the game to be better. And
Right.
so you might be more constructive in your feedback, right? One of the data points I was looking at the other day was for Warhammer Darktide. And one of the members sent 600 messages a day or 34,000 messages in 8 weeks, which constitutes 83.3% of one day, assuming that they sent a message every 2 minutes. And if you look at the messages, they start out with questions. They start out with like, hey, this, that, that. And by the time we get to 34,000, that has deteriorated into an absolute troll of just absolute just negativity and just really, really bad stuff. And somebody that has the time to put 34,000 messages out in 8 weeks is clearly a super fan. And if someone was real in that Discord and that Reddit that really worked for that team and could answer a couple of those questions or get that person to be an advocate for the game, imagine what a great voice that would have been for them to talk about the thing they love rather than to hate it by the end after being left in a vacuum with nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. That just you telling me that little story right there is freaking insane. And I'm sure some of them messages are scary, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's just like it's weird how things can divulge when it goes unattended for so long.
Yes, yes. So, I mean, Arkham Asylum is one of those communities that just sits there in Reddit, just like talking to
Passion.
themselves with no supervision. They can get to be really negative places. So it's good to have community people in the team, community professionals involved in that stuff. People have questions. We're here to just answer them. Sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes it's like here's why, or yes. There's been many times people have requested something, and I've been like, hey, that's a great idea. Let's put it in the game.
No doubt. All right. Well, Genesee, it has been an absolute pleasure having you here today. I've learned a ton, and hopefully, the people that are watching enjoyed and learned a good amount of what happens behind the scenes, but also how you came to be the person that you are within gaming and this community. I thought everything that you said was very insightful, but also just how you see it, which is very important. It's very important to have one person's vision instead of just thinking this is a collective thought that just kind of runs through the whole industry talking about like you broke things down to the point where it's just like I can't really be mad or argue it. It just is what it is. A lot of this stuff is what it is, and it will continue to hopefully get better. But this is where we're at right now.
Yep.
But
Everybody has the same goal, right? We want to make something that people love. We want to make something that people love to play and that we're proud of putting out. That's the goal for everyone.
absolutely, Jenesee, if you can do me one thing, and I ask this to every person on the way out of here, and before I do the sign out to show everybody where they can find you and let you go on ahead and spit your bars on that. I want you to describe gaming in just 3 words for me.
Oh, I think connection, probably getaway, and then community is the thing I always come back to.
Connection, getaway, community. Got it. And then obviously, like I just said, I want you to go on ahead and let everybody know where they can find you. Please go on ahead.
Oh, they can find me on Twitter at Jenesee. You can find me on LinkedIn, which I spend an embarrassing amount of time on now that the rest of the platforms have been like degrading into strangeness. My sad WordPress site there that you can look at, but I have a podcast that has old episodes on it. If you're interested in that, you can definitely go look up the Gray Area podcast. But I have a new one that I've been working on with my guys from Player XP that's on AI. So if you're into AI, it's called Black Box Podcast by Hertzian. And basically the questions that people want to know, like, what is AI? Is it going to take over the world? How is it working commercial? How does all that stuff? So AI stuff. And then, hey, just like check out games and maybe you'll find me in one of them.
There you go. That's phenomenal right there. Thank you so much again for coming through this episode. It was phenomenal. Learned a lot of stuff, and this will be in my catalog of awesome interviews.
Oh, well, thanks for having me on. I super appreciate you asking.
Shout out to everybody that was in the chat once again. Shout out to those of you that just came through just to watch, whether you're here the whole time or just for a little bit. We understand, 2.5 hours. Not everybody has time for all that, but hopefully you enjoyed what you came here to see. But this is your boy Ham Solo 05 Gaming signing off. TSWS Gaming, letting you know to keep it gaming or keep it moving. Have a wonderful rest of the year, you guys, and Merry Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you do. And make sure you tune back in here throughout the rest of this year and also the next as I continue to toss y'all some content. Thank you guys so much.
Subscribe to him.
Yeah, hit that subscribe button. Peace.